I wish there was someone around who could tell me about CPC.
All right, Paul.
Is there anybody else? Hello, my name's Paul McIntyre.
And my name's Lawrence Bolton.
And in this video, we're just going to talk about the CPC. What is required? What do we need to get it? How do we get it? And who needs it?
First of all, Paul, thanks for the glowing intro to this. Really appreciate that. Thanks a lot. Good to be wanted.
Anytime, anytime.
Yeah, let's do it.
So first of all, what is the CPC, Lawrence? What is it?
So the CPC stands for the Certificate of Professional Competence. It's that extra qualification that you're going to need on top of your license to go out there and work professionally. So if you were going to do your lorry, for example, you do obviously your theories, you go and do your course and you get your license. You think, great, let's go and get a job. Not quite. You need a CPC. And the CPC, obviously Certificate of Professional Competence, always nice to remember that. Impress your friends. Or maybe not. Don't bring that out at dinner parties. It was brought out by the government in 2008. Was it bus? I always get confused between, is it 8? Yeah, 2008 for buses and 2009 for lorries. It's brought out for that, for you to be a higher standard of driver. We'll go into sort of like what's involved specifically within it, but that's kind of what it's for.
So that's it. So
it's a waffly way of describing it.
The big reasons they've got it is the big perks of it is obviously road safety. It's a great advert for road safety.
Yeah.
Obviously emissions and saving the planet and that kind of stuff.
General professionalism.
General professionalism. So it is.
Make sure you're not just a chimp behind the wheel.
That's it. So that added qualification to make sure things are being done correctly and safely with regards to loading it, controlling it, and driving it around in a safe and competent manner.
Yeah, I mean, what I was trying to sort of get onto, and sort of I carried on waffling in another direction, is you get your license and you need the CPC as well to get a job. It's sort of 1, 2, then leads to the job, and you can't go and get that job that you're after until you've got both, ultimately. I think that's kind of a good little introduction for
it.
That's about it. There are 2 ways to obviously get your CPC. We're going to talk about both. Probably focus a little bit more on the initial CPC today.
Yeah.
The initial CPC is, you're sort of brand new to this. You're going to go in and get your lorry bus license, or sort of derivatives of that, C1, D1, whatever it may be. And the initial CPC involves Module 2, case study, and then followed by a practical, which is a Module 4. And that's that practical walk around with the examiner. So that's the Module 4. We'll get into like those details in a second, but that's kind of fundamentally what that is. That's Route 1, and then obviously Route 2 is the 35 hours continuation training. Once you've got your CPC, it's valid for 5 years, and you have to do those 35 hours. Again, we'll move into that a little bit later in the video, and we'll also discuss the scenarios in which you could do the initial versus the continuation, because there are guidelines in there. If you pass your test before a certain point, which we'll run into, it'll explain, and we'll also leave a link in the description below when that applies to you. But let's not get into it now. Let's move on from there.
So first of all, with that initial CPC, we're going to talk about the case study, which is in theory the theory test for that initial CPC. So Lawrence, how can I learn for it? How can I revise for it? And what is it?
You jump straight in there on the revision. Okay, right, we'll do it that way around. All right, fine, okay. We won't play by the script. So there's different ways you can do it. You can go on online theory platforms. You can books as well. It really all depends on your learning style. If you're good with books and you like sitting down and having a read, and if you've gone cover to cover as many times as you need to know you've got everything in the middle, great, do a book. For me personally, and this has nothing to do with like sort of younger generation, older generation, or I don't have a smartphone. I mean, well, who doesn't have a smartphone these days, I suppose, but That's why books are still there and they're still current.
That's it.
You know, I personally prefer an app or an online system, because then what you can do is you're replicating a lot better of what you're going to see on the day.
What you're going to get.
They can churn out hundreds of different mock tests with loads of different variables of questions.
Yeah.
So it just gives you that better idea
yes.
of what you're going to face, and it just sort of does it in a bit more easy to understand way. And you know, you could sit and revise anywhere. Really, you don't have to drag around a book with you. You know, from the toilet to the train, you could just get your phone out and obviously just have a little go.
That's it.
Obviously, because that's what I love to do in my pastime. Just revise needlessly. that's me. I think sort of like drilling down into what it is. We'll just go in. So it consists of 7 case studies, and there's approximately 6 to 8 questions per case study. The easiest way to think about the CPC, the Module 2 case studies theory test is it's like that classic kind of comprehension test you did in English back in school. Yeah. So you're going to get a short story scenario. Paul arrives at 6 o'clock in the morning to depot and gives you a nice little story about Paul, and then says how you're going to, what you're going to do, what you're going to check, different orders, what do we need to be aware of, that kind of stuff. You'll receive questions off that. The test lasts up to an hour and 30. That's if you need it. That is a long time.
It's a long time to be sitting at a computer.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. It's only 50 questions.
That's it.
I say only, so but it is involved.
Yeah, definitely.
And you need 40 out of 50 to get it passed.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, sounds easy, right?
That's it. I would say probably the hardest thing about the case study, unlike the multiple choice, is with the multiple choice you've got your revision book or you've got your apps, and here's the question and here's the answer, and it's quite easy to bounce them across and revise for that. The problem with the case study is they've come away from that, and there's not really a book or an official DVSA guide that here is the question and here is the answer. They're going to give you the theory that you need to know and understand with regards to driver's hours, loading the vehicle, accident handling. They're going to give you all of this theory and then ask you a case study about it.
The easiest way to describe this for me about the case study theory test, and the reason why it is the hardest realistically out of the 3 for a lot of people, especially we obviously take on quite a lot of people from different backgrounds all around the world, it's that language aspect, because the easiest way to put it for me is it's knowledge versus memory.
Yes.
So with your theory test stuff, what's the minimum height of an unmarked bridge?
That's it.
Remembering that is 16'6". Lovely, yeah. It's about understanding. You can't just remember facts and figures and get your way through it. You have to understand exactly what they're looking for, and then obviously be intelligent with your answer.
That's it.
And there's all, and that's the other thing to point off with your answers. It's still multiple choice. That is important that we didn't say.
Oh yeah.
It's still multiple choice. You've still got 4. Let's be honest. 2 of them are going to be rubbish.
Yeah, and the other 2 are going to be very close.
Yeah, it's going to be, you're approaching a traffic light that's been green for a while. What are you going to do? 2 of them could be along the words of speed up.
Yeah.
Or something like that, which clearly you're not going to do. So there is that.
But it's definitely a more challenging theory test to take, but it's just the work that you're going to put into it that will pay when you take the test.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, what we'll do is, in the link below, in the description below rather, we're going to put links to the study material that we use.
Yep.
We use a wonderful platform called DTS Anytime, which works really, really well. There's obviously apps and there's books, and we'll put everything down in the description below, because you can then decide what learning style works best for you, and then you can go and look off accordingly there.
That's it. I'll show some of the books that we use, these ones here and this one here.
So you passed your theory test, we've got there, well done. That is valid for 2 years, by the way. We need to put that in there, very, very important. You've got time. It don't need to go from theory straight to practical straight away. Obviously if you go through it, you're pretty motivated and you want to get on. Yeah. But if something happens, like another pandemic, hopefully not again, then you've got 2 years to do it. So, don't panic. Once you've gone to that stage, you're then obviously looking at the practical. We will bypass all the license acquisition stuff, so the actual driver training and the license for this. We're just focusing on CPC, because they work concurrently together. They work at the same time. But we're just focusing on CPC here. So you've done your theory, what next? It's the fun part, it's the practical. This is the walk around with the examiner, and well, I'm obviously going to leave you to the highly qualified, more than qualified, 2 qualified. Paul McIntyre, tell us what it's all about.
Thank you, Lawrence. So with the Module 4, this is the practical side of this test. Some say it's the easier bit, and it depends who you are, whether you find this easy or not, but definitely the practical side. It will be stressed at the beginning of this test, it is a demonstration. So please don't try and stand still and talk your way through this. This is a demonstration, and you will be asked to demonstrate and practically answer these questions. We've got 5 categories in which we're going to be marked for this test, and that could involve how to load the vehicle, how to secure our load. It's going to be involving walk around checks, so daily pre-op checks. It's going to involve how to prevent illegal activity, accident handling, and this is the kind of stuff they want to know and understand. Okay, so within these 5 categories, we have to achieve a mark higher than 15 within these 5 categories. Overall, on the whole test, we have to gain a score higher than 80 out of 100. Okay, so that's what we're looking for.
Nice. So literally. So just to sort of summarise, 5 categories, 20% each makes up your 100%.
Yes.
We've got to get 15% and above, and obviously, you know, nothing less than 80%.
Nothing less than 80 on the whole one. Normally
Easy
lasts
as peas.
about 35 minutes. The category is about 35 minutes.
It's kind of the maximum.
That's it.
But if you're rattling them off,
that's
and
it. If you're answering them and ticking
Mm.
these boxes quickly, which, you know, some people do, then yeah, it could be a little bit less.
I suppose the thing here that a lot of people worry about is that knowledge where it's on the spot, where if you're getting asked those questions in the theory test side, you've got a little bit of time to think about it. But if someone's asking you those questions, it's the panic.
That's it.
Oh my God, I don't know where my lights are. You're like, they're at the front and the back of the vehicle where they've been all week.
But that's where I think
people just go blank. It happens.
That's it, and that's where I think, you know, like we've mentioned in our Module 4 video, which is on YouTube, we'll link in the description.
Who does that one?
I think that's myself and Andy.
Let's bring it in there.
So with that video, it is stressed with this practical test, you know, walk around the vehicle, because you'll get a question, for instance, like, where could the fire start? And someone will stand still and try and think about these places. But like we mentioned in the video, if you walk around, it's going to help you trigger these answers.
Yeah.
And so the demonstration, yes, it can be a little bit challenging for people, but, you know, taking your time and walking around the vehicle, don't try and stand still. Doing it practically is sometimes a better way of doing it.
Nice. And I think that the final thing, and the most important thing, is, I mean, we're very lucky with our examiners at our DVSA approved test centre, but it is the same sort of DVSA UK wide.
Yeah.
They're not going to leave you hanging.
No.
They're not going to ask you a question and you give an answer, what you think is a good answer, and they'll be like, right. And if you haven't given enough, they'll bring it out of you. If it's in there, the knowledge is there. They will tend to coax it out of you.
Yes, very true.
Because that's important. It is a bit of give and take, which is nice. I think that's sort of it for the practical, really. Nice and straightforward. Keep talking, keep walking.
Yeah, that's it. That's the key. Definitely
Lovely.
the key.
So we've passed the practical. We've passed the theory now. We've passed the practical now. We're home and dry. Exactly. Well, obviously, if you passed as well the licence, I mean, just that small bit of the training and the actual practical test.
It's easy bit.
It'll be fine.
Bit of driving, isn't it?
That's just a bit of driving. So we've done that. Fantastic. What you will get from the DVSA examiner is you will get a pink certificate. At the time that you pass, obviously, typically, well, we sort of do it as a block for ourselves. Others may be different. Your licence will go off. That pink certificate effectively means right then and there you're a professional driver. That is your proof. It takes up to 20 days to get your driver qualification card through back from the DVLA. So until that time, that's what that pink certificate acts as. It's temporary cover. Temporary cover while you're waiting. So, you know, keep that on you. If you're going to go and get a job sort of the next day and you've got your licence already, fantastic. That's all you need. At that point, you're on the clock.
That's it. And at that
5
point,
years.
Your 5 years starts going from that point there. So within that 5 years, this is where you need to amalgamate your 35 hours of classroom modules. Okay, this is called the continuation training. So within that 5 years, you've got to do your 5 modules. These modules can be, I mean, they're getting wider and wider.
They are wider and wider. I mean, they're introducing things, you know, to do with cycling now. They're even providers are even like buying bikes and taking
That's
people
it.
out on
That's it.
bikes,
Yeah.
as if to demonstrate, how do you like it when there's a 32-ton grab lorry driving past you within that.
That's it.
And it's just, and there's all these new modules coming out all the time.
That's
There's
it. So
many.
with the cycling, which is a great aspect
it's
of
a
road
really
safety.
good addition.
There's manual handling, there's tachograph hours, first aid.
The list, we could do the rest of the video on.
Yeah. So within that 5 years, you've got to do your 35 hours of continuation training.
Yeah.
There's different ways of people doing it. I mean, me as a professional, I would do a module every year, obviously.
Oh.
Or
you could be, well, you said all right, if I'll give me the other side of the coin and say I'm not like Paul. Let's say that I'm not as well with it, and I think, I've got my CPC, lovely, I'll see you guys in 5 years. You're going to wait until year 4, month 11, and you're going to think, oh my goodness, my CPC lapses in a month, and you're going to be in that classroom for 5 days straight to get your 35 hours. The other thing to note at this point, that's more expensive. Doing a 5-day intensive course in your CPC continuation, your classroom stuff, that's more expensive than just doing, I would like a module on X, and then the next year you do it on Y, and then on Z, and so on and so forth. So that is a top tip right there.
Yeah, it's a big
Don't
tip.
forget. Book it in, do one a year, just take the hassle out of it. Those 5 days annual leave that you're going to be doing in year 4, month 11, you could be on holiday.
Yeah, this is it.
Don't waste your annual leave on that.
This is it.
So I mean, I think that's kind of it, really.
That's it. Yeah.
Other thing to mention, obviously, we're now a professional driver. If we're out driving and we're stopped, let's say we don't have our card.
Yep.
If you don't have a card on you at the time that you're stopped by obviously any kind of governing body, and they ask you, where's your driver qualification card? You don't have it on the spot. That could be a £50 fine. So it's just not worth it. Again, save the money for anything else that you'd rather do.
And worst case scenario, forgetting your card is one thing. If you're caught without the qualification, so you've passed your driving test, your theories, you're out driving for John Smith's aggregates or whatever. If you're caught without that qualification, that could be up to £1,000 fine, and obviously that could then fall back on the O licence holder as well. Okay, so
that is just an absolute no-no. Don't go down that road. No. Don't take the risk. It happens. We've seen it. It's a miserable time for all, for the individual and for that operator. You don't want to lose that operator's licence.
That's it.
I suppose that's the serious part of the video.
Oh yeah.
That's the watch yourself part of the video, which is good.
Yeah.
Let's get done. So here comes the fun. We're going to talk acquired rights, and I don't know if I've seen too much conversation on acquired rights. It is a bit of typically a grey and muddy area where people will fumble around. To caveat this and to give the best advice really, from our conversation here, even if you are still slightly unsure, phone up the DVLA. That is what they're there for. That's what they're there for. Phone up the helpline and ask them where you stand. Yeah. Because what we're going to do is we're going to put a little table just down here, and this will explain that if you passed the vehicle category before a certain year, you have got what is called acquired rights. Now, what that means is that you have a good level of driving experience, and so therefore you may not, if you passed your category B before 1997, for example, you'll have a D1, so the minibus, and a C1, 101 on the back of your license. I literally can hear people like scrambling around.
That's trying to find it.
I passed for 97. Let's have a look. Lawrence is right. It says 101 on the back. What that means is you've got that pre-bank of driving experience, and that means that if you wanted to, it's the very important wording is commercial and non-commercial, and we'll work down into the exemptions in a second as well. If you want to take the minibus out and you've got a very large family for the day, you can drive it, but you cannot obviously receive payment for doing that. I'm moving too much into exemptions and things like that. Yeah. But the main point is with acquired rights is do check about when you pass, because the most important thing for this video, because obviously I love to waffle, is whether you do the initial CPC or you do the 35 hours, because you have a choice. You don't have to do the initial CPC. You can go straight into the 35 hours classroom training. And I suppose this kind of sparks a bit of a debate.
Which one to go for?
Which one to go for? You know, let's say, for example, you know, I passed my lorry before in 2006. I now have that option of either doing the initial, the module 2 and 4, which we spoke about, the theory and practical, or the 35 hours continuation. And I suppose if you don't like tests, and the thought of sitting down at a computer and revising and meeting an examiner, that gives you the creeps, and makes your knees go a bit wobbly. You might want to do the 35 hours. I mean, I don't know how you think about this.
I mean, it depends on the student. It depends on the person. Somebody who maybe have acquired rights or grandfather's rights, they might not want to go through that period of revision again. So they might just want to do, death by PowerPoint, sit in front of the teacher.
Death by PowerPoint.
And
you can type
do
it now.
You can do the cycling. So it depends what you got. Me personally, I would prefer to do the case study and then the module 4.
You're a busy man, Paul. You're a busy man. It's the time, isn't it?
It just comes down to
sit in a classroom for 35 hours.
It's just coming down to what you prefer. So if you've got those acquired rights, it gives you those two options.
It's nice because you have the option. If I passed a week ago my license, you're going straight in for your initial. You don't have the choice. But if you've got those acquired rights, you have the choice to go through door A or door B, and that's very important.
That's exactly it.
Paul, I already started to sort of tiptoe onto the line of exemptions, but it's kind of probably our favourite bit out of the CPC, because there are some obviously very important things in there and some slightly comical things which we'll move on to. And this is the point of the video where you're thinking, however long this has gone through, and you're like, yes, and this is where you find out you might not need one.
So this is it. So with the CPC, yes, there are a number of people that don't need it. Okay, we will put the link in the description to the government website, which will give you all of these in detail, and it will give you, I mean, some of the brilliant examples that the DVSA.
I mean, who writes this stuff is what I want to know. I mean, we'll go through the main, the common, and then the main, the common, and the obscure.
This is it. So
main ones.
The big one with the CPC: if you are driving for a non-commercial carriage of passengers or goods, basically you don't need it.
You're not getting paid.
You're not getting paid.
That's the easiest way, isn't it? It's non-commercial. You're not being paid. And it's not your main job as well.
So, for instance, you're moving house, you're taking the family down to the coast in the minibus, this kind of thing. This would be the exemption.
So, another main part of that as well is, say you're a mechanic and you need to go out and road test a vehicle. You don't need a CPC. Training.
Yes, training. Yeah.
We don't need CPCs for obviously conducting training. And things like that. There are some things that you'll see, obviously, when you click on the link below and have a good look. If you're operating within 62 miles of a depot, not that a vehicle test would last 62 miles, it's a long old vehicle test. I'll say if it can get up to 60 miles, I think the vehicle's fine.
This is it.
But you've got that, and it's sort of up to 30%. 30% is what the government
of your monthly.
Your monthly working hours. Anything
I
below
think that's
that.
the one that the scaffolders come on to, is because the scaffolder is a big one. The scaffolder is the one where they don't need it, and yes, they don't need it at the moment. They're always saying they're gonna pull that restriction.
They're still getting stopped.
That's it. They're still getting stopped, and they're still getting done. So because a scaffolder's primary role is not a driver, they are a scaffolder. They are moving around their own goods, so they're not carriage of goods of other customers. This is their exemption that they run under. Okay, so that it's a good exemption that they have. However, a lot of these scaffolders are putting themselves through.
Just to be safe, because it's just not worth the headache. The CPC in the grand scheme of sort of license acquisition, it's not that expensive. Cover yourself. It's there for 5 years. That's the kind of thing. You might be in the scaffolding game. I think this is my 5-year plan. So you never need to renew or even do the classroom hours.
That's it.
Obviously, don't condone that, but that could be that could be certainly your 5-year plan, and that's what you're looking at doing. Another main example of this, which is entirely relevant, and I'm sure there are some out there that will be watching. Teachers. Teachers, teaching assistants. If you're minibus, you're going on a sports trip, games trip, something like that. That is clearly not your main job as a driver.
Of course.
So teachers are a big one, and they don't have to do CPC either.
That's it.
This is the part where, Paul, I'm going to throw you over to the more entertaining ones.
So obviously one of the examples with the DVSA, and I mean it's very common. I mean I'm not sure I've ever taught anyone that does this job role, but one of, a fantastic example of someone who doesn't need this CPC is the transportation of pigeons.
Pigeons.
Okay? So pigeon racing, it doesn't need a CPC purely because, your primary role is not, the transportation of pigeons, I hope. It's one of those examples that's in the government website, which we'll put in the link.
When we were getting our facts right and our pigeons in a row, that's a terrible pun. Ultimately, that is the description.
Yeah.
That is the example. It's on the DVSA website. But I suppose it does make you think about it. It does make you remember,
this is it,
what it is about. But the other thing as well, like rescue missions.
Rescue missions, yeah.
Pigeon racing and rescue missions.
I mean, the definition of a rescue mission, it's...
I've got some important business to be dealing with in North London, and it's possibly an emergency/rescue.
Yeah.
Does that count? Don't. Unless
it's not worth
unless
the
the world is ending and zombies have landed, I don't think you can constitute a rescue.
No,
rescue, pigeon racing, no. Do you know what? Link in the description below.
That's it.
Go and
have
check
a look
it out yourself
and see whether you've got it or
have
you
a look
need
at
it.
exemptions, because you may not need one.
Okay, so in conclusion, this is it. So you've got your two ways of getting the CPC. You've got the initial, the theory test and the practical, and then you've got the continuation once you've passed your 35 hours with those modules. Okay, different ways of doing it, depending on whether you've got those acquired rights or not. Okay, so thanks very much for watching. I hope it's been handy and helpful.
Hope so. I think that's about it from us today. We obviously do a lot of work on the initial CPC, including the module 4. We will link to the videos as well, so you can go and watch them after this video if you'd like that. And of course, for more sort of news, updates, anything within the industry, training, subscribe, and we've always got more videos coming out. Thanks for watching.
Thanks very much.